Right, so just a quick recap on what I built in the last 2 days. Um, we were trying to build um, the IT service request application or workflow application. We built the data layer, we built the workflow, and we built the user interface and the K2 for users to actually start and action tasks related to this workflow application. We also saw how easy it is to use the smart objects to change your data store from the K2 Smartbox data store into your own custom data store, custom SQL. Today we will build on that route as well. We will move our data store into SharePoint, and then we can just that smart object to actually, rather than pointing to the SQL data store, to make it pointing to the SharePoint data store. Right. In today's session as well, I'm going to introduce different parts of the K2 and SharePoint um, scenarios, different SharePoint and K2 integrated scenarios. We have three applications that you can build with SharePoint in the picture. The first one is, which is the simplest, is building a SharePoint centric data K2 workflow. So take this example and show you how we can go and move with these and use the K2 capabilities. So this is my SharePoint portal, and I will go and add some list. Adding some columns as well, and then we will see how we can add a so this is a custom list. We'll come and say, okay, so this is my ITS, and as part of the K2 for SharePoint, the K2 for SharePoint 2013 here, we're talking about the K2 app for SharePoint 2013. So now this is my ITS list, and here I can just go and edit the list and add some columns. So this is the title of the request. We can add text category. For instance, we can go and add priority. Some of the fields that we actually, okay, sorry, I want this to be as a person. Okay, so okay, let's say request status, and we can add a person type saying requested. Right, I'm sure you know you can add whatever columns that you want to add to your SharePoint list. And now I'm happy. Great. So one of the things that you will get with K2 for SharePoint is the K2 application or the K2 app. If we go and browse this this app, so this is a SharePoint app coming from K2. You would add this app into your SharePoint infrastructure or your SharePoint site collection, And this is what the app administration page, and this is what you get. So there's the registration wizard, which will start by generating some of the schema on your SharePoint. There's also here you can go and look into permissions, synchronizing users and groups, going and seeing what artifacts do we have, what smart objects based on SharePoint do we have, what reports do we have, as well as if you have any forms built on top of this list or not. So this is the list of smart objects that we created or generated from K2. Okay, so it's first time to load this page, so it sounds like a little bit slower than it should. But here we have the list smart objects. We have libraries and document library smart objects, and we have additional CRM or sites that we have. Going back to my portal, and let's kick this effort. Let's say that I want to build my IT service request, but my business data actually not in HR, it's in my custom list in here. So if I come to this this list, right, if we go to the list ribbon menu, you see that there's on the ribbon there's the K2 application and reports. So I will just simply come and say, okay, I'll click the application, and you'll see what this does for me. So if you have already an application built on top of this list, you can come and say, okay, I want to deploy a solution on top of this list that I packaged from another environment. Right, so come and say, okay, so create a new application. So this application, it asks me now here, okay, I want to create a smart object that represents this data structure of the list. I want to actually create smart forms and use the smart forms instead of the default SharePoint forms. And I want to actually also create workflow based on this list, and this workflow will be based on the new My ITS form. And finally, I want this tool to build me reporting for this workflow. Simple, easy, straightforward, and you can see the magic happening in the back, and the results will appear in a few minutes. Now, this is like a quick way to do the SharePoint K2 application or integrated applications. Sometimes you actually say, okay, I want to generate the smart object now. Okay, and later I want to create the forms. And then later you can come and say, okay, now I want to build the workflow. And later you can come and say, okay, now I want to build the report. So it doesn't have always to go all together. It's up to you. But we'll see the results at the end of the day. What you get is the same outcome. Right, so we'll see now. There's a lot of artifacts generated in the back end. K2 is busy building and doing some configurations for SharePoint to replace the existing forms. Not to replace them that you lose them forever, but now we are changing the configuration of the list. So we're hooking a new user interface. All right, so we're reaching to the workflow. This means that the smart objects were created, the forms were created, and now we are at the workflow step. So here we're saying that we will start this workflow based on the my ITS new form, and immediately after that I will come and say, okay, I will go and create a user task for the manager. See, now this is the designer living within SharePoint. So this is the manager step, and please approve the request. Enhance, and here we can come and say, okay, either it's approve or reject. Going next. So here we are using the edit my list form. As you can see, we have the item reference pointing to the smart object of the my ITS list. Action settings. I'll just come and say, okay, I want to place my action control on the bottom of the form. It's moving next. Who's the participant? Again, you've seen this in the K2 Studio, but here we are showing the web designer. I want to notify the participants. Yes. And now, do you want to customize the email or not? If you want. And then I'm done. I'm done configuring the manager step. So it's either approved or rejected. If it's approved, we probably to now going and sending this task to the IT support. Support will either say resolve, or like they have to actually resolve it, so they have no other choice. Again, I'll leave these things and I'll just change here support team. Now I can go and say, okay, I want to assign this to a role. Let's go and just get the role incident management. Send a notification. Yes, next. Not customizing the form. Sorry, the email. I'll just say finish. So now once it's actually resolved, I'll just go and say, okay, so we're gonna send to originator. Okay, so resolution accepted. Or the originator might say resend back to support. We move next. Again, we're creating a new here. So this is the originator state. As you can see here, and whoever asked me yesterday about the state, here I'm using the state. Okay, so this task goes back to the originator, and then we can go and say finish. But now I will go and adjust this. So if the resolution is not accepted and sent back, we will send it to the IT support team. Okay, so this is how it looks now. If the resolution is accepted, I will go and to my where is that? So I have my ITS, and you can see now how it's really interesting how K2 is doing these things. And now with that list, now we have wizard already created and generated and workflow steps available for that particular list, and you can access them like they are an existing templates. So I'll just come in here and say, okay, so I want to update the list item that I just created. Where's that? Okay, so just go and update this list item, right? So we need the ID. So I have the item reference already, I have it. So the ID of the list item is here. So I'll just come here and say, and the request status is resolved. Say next and finish. Okay. If the manager rejects that, I will simply go and delete the list item. Right, and again, it asks for the ID of the list item that actually we want to delete. So just passing this. And we say finish. Right, cool. I'm happy with the workflow. I met the workflow requirements. Again, we didn't exactly 100% make it mimic to the one that we built with the K2 Studio. Still can go send email notifications, etc., etc. It's up to you. I just wanted to make that to explore more options that you can do. We can also, instead of deleting the list item, we can go and update the status. Similarly, like we did here, but I wanted also to show you something else extra as part of this workflow. So I'm happy I just go and deploy it or publish this workflow to, to K2. Remember, there's no artifacts, there's no workflow, there's nothing published on the SharePoint side, except an event handler added to this list. Okay, or actually with this approach, okay, so we're not doing an event handler based workflow of SharePoint, because we are starting this workflow based on a smartphone form, not on item added, on item deleted, etc., etc. If we're doing the workflow start as on item added or an item updated, then we will create, or the designer will go and create an event handler on this SharePoint list that actually communicates back to K2 to start the workflow. In this example that I just, there's nothing, absolutely nothing added into SharePoint. Right? And this is what makes things very, very neat, clean, and flexible in the future. If you want to go and upgrade your SharePoint, move your SharePoint. If you want to upgrade K2, move K2. There's transparency between the two systems. All you need is just like the K2 app deployed, configured correctly, and then you just take this solution and move it across environments. Right, so we're waiting for this deployment to actually finish. Remember, it has a lot of artifacts built part of this workflow, so it would probably take some time to deploy and publish. If we go and just explore what's available, what is happening in there, we go back to the K2 designer from outside. We have the K2 for SharePoint or SharePoint 2013. We have the portal site collection, and under that you can go and see the lists, and I have the my ITS list, and inside that you see the different artifacts that we just generated. So we have the workflow already we created, we have the smart object, and there's the attachment smart object associated with that. So I can simply take that form outside SharePoint, all right, and give it to users somewhere else. So this is the form that you can see. And I can go and prototype it the way as simply as I have it with the yesterday's form. I can go add header, make it look different, which we will come to at a later stage. But let me test this, or just before we do this. So now everything deployed successfully. I'll just go and close this designer. And now I can go to the K2 application for this particular list, and I can see the artifacts related to this list. I can come from here and say, okay, I want to package the application. Okay, create a package out of this application, or I can come into this list in a different environment and say, okay, I want to deploy a package on top of this list. But you will have also the flexibility. Remember, we said like let me just go here and go back to the portal. I'll go to my ITS list. If I come and say, okay, new item, now users will see the K2 form, not the out-of-the-box SharePoint form. All right? So if I want to revert the users back to the original form, I just come here and say, okay, the form settings for this list. Come on. Right? So for this list, here you can just revert back to the default SharePoint forms. I'll just show you how this will impact or what's the result there. All right, instead of using a K2 Smart Forms, for the new, I will use the default one. I'll just say save. It's up to you. So if we go back to the list, again, we come and say new item. Still not applied yet. Okay. Might be cached or something. Still seeing the K2 form. Let's open a Jono's browser. This is still the K2 form, so yeah, so this is the default SharePoint form that we have, right? If we go back and reset the form settings back to use actually smart form instead. Okay, so if we say save, and if we go back to even Jono's, so now we are seeing the K2 form instead. So we're not seeing the default SharePoint form for this list. Come on. Oh, I made a mistake. Sorry. It's not the display, it should be the new. Save. And if we come and say new now. Oh. Anyway, it sounds like still cached, also with Jono. But now let's go and test the workflow and see also the reports in the back. So if we go back to this list now, my ITS going into the new item, I'll just go and say, okay, so this is a test one, the category hardware or whatever, priority high, requester is pop. Sorry, this is the status in progress, and here is pop. Right, so now going and posting this back. So this will start the workflow. I'm going back here. We go to the workflow reports, which we can access also from here. Go to the list report. So this is what's generated out of this designer. Obviously, you can go and customize it the way you want. So now we have one instance started. If you click on that instance, you can get to the details. This is the folio, which is the title, and this is the priority, etc. And then you can go to that instance detailed steps. So now it's pending at the manager step. Okay. From here also you can go and to view the flow diagram. So now if we go back to me remember journal. Here. Okay, so if I go to so this is my task list. This is another one of, or another way of integrating K2 and SharePoint is having one central stop for users to deal with their K2 and your workflow and K2 applications. So from here they can launch the applications, they can have their task list. Okay, so now clicking on this request, should open the form. Oh, sorry, this is not the one. Okay, this one. So this will take me to this user interface. Okay, so these are the details. All right, and this is the workflow task. Okay, it's very straightforward, basic form, and obviously you can go and customize it. You want to see how you can customize this? It's so easy, either from the K2 designer here, or you go to, so this is the edit form. Just go and check it out. And then edit it. Okay, so now I can come to my form, to the style of my form. So just making it in the center. So this is already borders padding. Okay, but I also want to add a header. So I have like different, just work with this one. If you want footers as well. If you don't want to show the attachment, it's up to you as well. But now, also, actually, I'm not gonna use the SharePoint theme, so I'll just use my Twilight theme. Or actually, let's see something more interesting. The Burgundy is a nice theme. Just go and say finish here. And then the last step is just to check it in. Right, cool. So now if we go back to Jono's workflow form, so this is the one. If we refresh it, you see the changes applied. Okay, so this is how it looks now. This is the work desk, etc., etc. And again, what you probably can do is also you can go on the page load, you hide this button, or actually, I'll just make it more interesting. So on the edit my ITS view, I will just go and remove that button so it does not appear. So the cancel. Can go and make things like read only. So it's up to you. So just make this finish now. Okay, so the changes applied. Users, they can see these changes. As you can see, simple, straightforward, and direct to what you want. Approving a SharePoint centric data out of K2 workflow application as well as K2 forms. Then once we approve it, or like let's go and say, okay, let's approve it for now. Go and say submit. Okay, so now it's the IT support engineers opening this form as well. So now we're putting the workflow action view on the top. So we're going and say resolve, submit. It goes back to the originator, which is here. So if we go back to the portal, so here I'll accept the resolution. I'll say submit. Now if we go back to actually our list, you'll see that the item is updated to be resolved or approved, as you can see here. Alright, so this is simple, straightforward, list-based workflow that we are flexibly and simply and quickly built on K2, including the forms customization of that list that we use within the workflow. Now, there are a lot of needs on SharePoint side other than workflow. It's not like just we are getting SharePoint to to build actually workflows. But sometimes, or a lot of the times, you have a forms level customizations. So if we have, for instance, we have customer tickets here, okay? If we go to the list, going to the K2 application, I'm not sure if we built forms on that or not. I would assume so. Okay, there is existing forms. Let's see. Let me think of a scenario quickly here. Okay, so let's go and add like a custom list, another custom list. Or actually, instead of custom list, let's add a contacts list. Okay, so I'll call this my accounts. And then going to my accounts, into the K2 application. Okay, if we go back to my accounts, you see that the form is actually, you have the last name, first name, full, etc. So this is the default one. But now I actually want to give users more I want to add more control to the user. Okay, so the company, you cannot add a contact of a company unless we have the company listed somewhere else. Okay, and you don't fill it, you actually select it. So how we're gonna do this? So let me just start this because this will warm up. But now let me go. Okay, so the easiest and the quickest is I'll just go to my ITS. I'll create a new smart object based on SQL smart objects. Right, so I will have a company register here. So companies. So I have the ID of the company. I need the Arabic name. I will add English name, short name, company brief as memo. I will add company keywords. Company keywords, like if I want to go and search by the companies who are actually CRM specialists, they do K2, etc. etc. So these keywords I can put them just for references. So key contact, city, country, maybe, phone number. All right, so this is pretty much it, what I want to capture. I'll just go say finish. And then I will go and quickly generate some UI so I can fill in some data. So I'll create the item and the list of items and then put them in one form that I can manage them. So while this is generating these objects, I'll go back to my accounts. So I'm going to say, okay, I want to create a smart object and I want to create forms. Don't care about workflow. I just want this form to add some extra fields and extra components that are coming from outside SharePoint. All right? There's no workflow involved. It's just form level customizations of this SharePoint list. Okay, so I'll just go and say, okay, go and generate these objects for me. Then we'll go back to here. So now if we go to the companies, I hope this doesn't distract you and you're following what I'm doing here. So I hope I can write Arabic here. Okay, so I can't. Anyways, the Arabic name, let's just put this K2ME, K2 Middle East, short name, K2ME, company brief, a regional office in Middle East, responsible for driving business and operations for K2 throughout channel partners. Right, company keywords, I'll put K2, I'll put PPM, I'll put SharePoint integration, I'll put CRM integration, I'll put SAP, I'll put workflow, I'll put forms, put automation, whatever keywords you want to add for your company, key contact, I'll put myself, city Dubai, and the country is UAE. This can be also of a select kind of thing rather than filling in. Just go and say create. Okay, and let's put, for instance, here Microsoft Gulf. Right. MS GCC, regional East, responsible business celebrations for. Let's just put it this way. So they are not responsible for K2. They don't provide PBM, SharePoint, CRM, SAP, Windows, workflow, no, SQL, BI, what else? Dynamics. Okay, that's fair enough. So I have two companies. You could have thousands of companies. So now I go back to my, where's my contacts forms? So now they are generated. Okay, all right. So now in this example, so the new contact, I'll just check this view. Again, if I go to my contacts here, see the SharePoint default behavior versus the what we are trying to add from a K2 perspective. So now if we say new, so you have like, this is a K2 form, all right, but it's pretty much the same as what you have with SharePoint out of the box. But now I can say, okay, I don't want the users to actually fill the company. I want them to start writing, and while they are writing, I will try to match with a back-end data source. So if we go back here on the edit, or sorry, on the new contact, okay, so the company here, instead of it's a text box, I want actually to replace it with an autocomplete control. Now I can go to this autocomplete control and just configure it. So I want this autocomplete thing. This is the complete thing is, just give you a quick example. Go to google.com. Sorry. Right, so here while you are writing, K2 is trying to match what you are trying to do with possible, keywords. This is exactly what we are trying to do, the autocomplete thing. So now I'll say, okay, try to match what's being written in this text box with backend source, the company or companies, right? And then here I want you to store the value of the account English or short name. This is what will be stored, but actually when you start to display, I want you to search and try to match the fields between Arabic name, English name, okay, company brief, maybe company keywords. All right, I'm happy, say okay, and then I'll just say okay here. And in this view as well, okay, that's fine. I'll say finish. So if we go back now to my account, going and saying new item, you see now the company, right? So okay, trying to match it with something. So there's only one value that we have here. But if we're trying to match this with SAP, here it is, something to SharePoint, so we have two potential values. Okay, so I'm gonna select this one, right? Saying Yusuf, but then I would say, okay, so this is not what I actually completely need. I need to add more stuff. So now we go back to the designer. I will come and say, okay, so I'm happy with the new contact view, but on the new contact form, okay, I want to retrieve the full details of that company once selected into the context of this form. So now I'll go and edit this form, right? And this is how it gets really interesting for SharePoint customizations and building SharePoint and K2 applications. So if I go to my the IT webinar, So I have the company's item. I'll just drag it into here. Okay, so I'll just name this company details. Okay, and in here I'll just come and do some tweaking there, but we'll go to this rule. So here we have on the new contact, when the save, when we go to my accounts, my accounts. Okay, so we'll come and say, okay, so when a control on a view is changed, so here we can say when a control on a view raises an event. So here we are selecting the view, which is the new contact, and the control is company autocomplete, and the event is changed. Okay, we'll go and execute a view method, and the view method is the company item, and the method is load, and we go here. Yeah, there's a slight change we need to do. So this is requesting the ID, but actually the autocomplete control is capturing the. So this is the where is that? This is the autocomplete. So we have the companies, and then I can go and okay, just go and say finish here. Say okay. I hope this works without any glitches. So just say save here. I'll go back now to my accounts. Click new item. So you can see now, if I go and say, okay, so this is something related to dynamics. The minute I select this one, so now I'm populating the details of that company. Now, all right, again, you can go and say, okay, so on this company, the company item, I want to make it slightly different. So I'm going to remove the operation buttons there, the create, update, delete. It's up to you, but you can remove it or keep it. I'll just go and just remove these. Remove the company ID. Just change this to be more English. Just put the key contact here. Going into company keywords, city, but here I can go and say, okay, so merge these together. I can come here and say, okay, add a new row in the bottom, going phone number, the city. Okay, and also getting this here. You can go and say, okay, so the company brief, I want this to be rich text. Up to you. It's as simple as what you can see here. And then you can go and say, okay, so I have done it. I'm happy with everything in here. You can go and say, okay, so this is a read only. So I don't want users to be able to change the data here. You can go and mark all your fields, read only or editable. We removed the operations and anyway, so from here, so just go and say finish, and going back to my contacts, again, new item. As you can see here, going and saying Microsoft. So this is the details as we can see it. This is another way of building customizations for SharePoint with the help of K2. I know there are two primary areas where users or people or partners and companies are doing rough customizations on SharePoint. The UI and forms, this is one thing, and the other one is workflows. And as you can see now, K2 can help a lot driving these two areas of customizations around SharePoint. At the end of the day, there's zero customizations or additions or changes to the SharePoint infrastructure. All these customizations happening, and what you see here is actually stored on the K2 side, which in the future, the common dilemma, the common problem, and it's absolutely an unavoidable big problem for SharePoint customers and users. When we go from a version to another version, we had a lot of problems and failures in our upgrades, updates, because of the customizations we do on our SharePoint. These customizations you saw today are fully transparent. They are entirely on the K2 side, there's nothing on SharePoint side, which operationally will help you in the future for your upgrades, your day-to-day management of your SharePoint, etc., etc. I hope I could cover most of what I want. There are a lot of things also when we consider SharePoint integration. You can build, one of the things that you can do. So I built yesterday the forms and the application. Okay, but if you remember the form that we built yesterday, where is that? The IT service request form, this one. So we built this form and it's available outside SharePoint. Users, they can go and fill it, submit request. But now you could also go to SharePoint and say, okay, so actually I want to add that user interface back into the same SharePoint interfaces. I want to provide consistent user experience. So I want users to come and be or never leave SharePoint. So now here it is. This is a new page. And part of the K2 app you install, there's an app part called K2 Smartphone Viewer. I'll just go and add it. And this app viewer will allow you to go and select which form you want actually to present in this. So this is it, IT service request form. Select this form. Okay, so it will now be living in this space, right? But now, because I'm hooking this form into SharePoint, I need to go and just slightly tweak it. So I'll go and say, okay, so actually I don't want any borders. I'll just give it back to the default SharePoint 2013 theme. I don't want padding, or just like leave it as, and the width is 100%. I'm going back here, right? So of course, you can play with the height and the width. When you have, for instance, already you hook this SharePoint into this form into the SharePoint interface, I would personally go and get rid of this header. So I don't need to provide a header because we will be having the SharePoint header. So removing this header. And then saying save. Right, so it's up to you. You build your form on the K2 as quickly and as high quality as you, and then it's up to you. It's a choice you need to make, whether you want users to actually come here, click a link, and they open a form outside SharePoint, or they click a link and then they are within SharePoint. You open the K2 form for them. Well, that's it for today. If you want to read more in depth on what we also can do with SharePoint, there's a lot of resources, a lot of areas, and but this is like the most common scenarios and the best way to achieve these scenarios that we can do with SharePoint. I hope this left a good value and good knowledge so far. I concluded my part. Please, we'll open a Q&A now for any questions related to today or the previous 2 days. Just to make sure as well, we will have the 3 recordings of the 3 sessions posted into our YouTube channel. I'll make sure that this happens before or like by the close of business today. We will also send you an FTP download link where you can also download the solution that we built for the IT service request. Some of you requested that. So this will also be available on our FTP site. So if you want to download it and just go take it and play with it, and we're happy to do that. Other than this, we have an open channel of communication. You can email me. You can, if you need any support, you can log to the support portal if you're a partner or if you are a customer with valid access. If you don't, please email Scott for any needs you need, for any requirements, for any clarifications, questions, maybe suggestions for future webinars and topics that we can address. We are like expecting good feedback from you. So we have some question. All right, so we will send you the URL for the YouTube channel. That's definitely will happen today. Can we tie the SharePoint link that we created today with the workflow we created yesterday? Absolutely, that is very, very simple. Let me open the K2 Studio yesterday. We built yesterday. So yesterday we already built these workflow with the smart objects bound to a SQL data store. We'll just quickly go and change the data source of that smart object to look to SharePoint list. Or what makes even more rich and interesting thing, we will let the smart object to actually push data into SQL and some of that data into the SharePoint without changing anything on your workflow or in your form. So let's see how quickly and easy and amazingly K2 can do that. Alright, so we have the smart object IT service request. So we have the the create method. So I'll just go and edit this method. I'll say run this in advanced mode. So I'll just go say next, next, next. So there is a service instance level method, goes and talks to the database. I'll add another one that will go and communicates with SharePoint list. So here I can go and browse to my service objects. So we have SharePoint 2013. Where is that? Oh, sorry. Portal.dynamics.com. We have lists. We have my ITS. Okay. And here we have the create method. Create list item. I'll just add this. I can go and say auto map, but there's no equivalent names to of columns. So I can come and say, okay, the title in this will come from the ITS title. Okay. The category will come from the ITS category. The priority will come from the priority. Status will come from the ITS status. Requester coming also from, or we're binding this to requester. And the ID is like auto-generated. And just go and so this is because SharePoint generates its own ID. Okay, so now the create method on the smart object, it will go and create the record in the database, and some of that fields will be sent to the SharePoint list. How this is Awesome. The same way we can do it with the save and the delete and the load. And why is this is actually being published? So let's go back to where is that workflow? Oh, let's do it from within SharePoint here. Okay, so it's done. So the title, testing both SharePoint and SQL. This is a emergency thing that I want to actually do. This is software. This is to test. Okay, so submitting the request. Okay, confirmation, we're done. And now, if we go to my ITS, you'll see that there's a new record added, okay, into this SharePoint list, okay. And if we go back to the SQL store, you'll find that we have that also posted there. I hope that shows you how rich, how flexible you can change sources without changing the different layers of your application. You can have one method on your smart object post into multiple systems in the back end, and that completely taking away from your forms logic. It's more into the data management logic. It's entirely flexible and doable. The way you want it is the way that K2 allows you to have it. Right, next questions? So we have almost 10 minutes left with this last session. I was expecting more questions today than the previous 2 days, but I hope I delivered some of the knowledge, some of the hidden possibilities and functionalities that are not commonly can be realized or can be, acquired around the K2 applications knowledge and how K2 applications can be built and can be integrated with various backend systems. Just going to our table here. Right, so this is the one that we just created out of this request. Now, since there's no further questions, the last thing that I would probably let you know about the SharePoint integration is how massive the out-of-the-box components and integration areas that come with the K2 with SharePoint when it comes to SharePoint. If we look at the workflow from a workflow perspective, if we go to the event wizards, we have under SharePoint, we have SharePoint document events, adding documents, permissions, check in, check out documents, copying, creating folders, document sets. See how these operations, okay, you can do on your SharePoint documents in SharePoint. On the document sets as well, copy document set, create, delete, update. SharePoint groups, adding users to groups, getting users groups, deleting groups, and on the library level, on the fly going and creating libraries and lists, removing and adding permissions to these libraries, list, pretty much anything you think you need to do. What do we do on a day-by-day basis? We go create lists, we create list items, we create document libraries, we create sites, we create subsites, we create document libraries, we create document sets, we create folders, we create and upload documents in SharePoint. This is pretty much, I would say, more than 80% of what you do on a day-by-day basis in SharePoint. We have an equivalent or a mapped event that you can use within your workflow applications or within your integration with your SharePoint to actually automate that. Few of the things that we can do, like around the content, which are and the information architecture, such as the metadata store and the content types management, the site columns management, etc., which is something you actually build right from the beginning when you establish your SharePoint infrastructure, rather than you automate the life cycle of the SharePoint data. Right. Well, to wrap up, we've seen over the last 3 days or 3 sessions, we explored data and how simple K2 allows you to build your data repositories or integrate with existing data repositories, how easy it is to actually move your data repositories between different systems, from K2 Smartbox Store to SQL custom database, and from there to SharePoint lists, integrating and fetching data from Active Directory. We've seen also how easy and simple to translate the business process model we've seen in the Visio diagram and translate that into an automated K2 process. Then we've seen how easy and quickly and how rich the K2 forms we can produce and build with the K2 Forms Designer. Different options of UI, different controls. We've seen also different ways of theming and branding our forms. And then today we highlighted how rich and different scenarios where we can use K2 and SharePoint integration to actually take our SharePoint into the next level, enhancing your SharePoint user experience, enhance the way and speed up the way you build customizations for your SharePoint. We've seen also how we can introduce the K2 forms you build into your SharePoint forms or your SharePoint user interfaces. How we can build K2 workflows around your SharePoint data, which is a very, very important thing, rather than going and building workflow on SharePoint workflow capabilities and features, which probably everybody knows how limited is that when you build, and how difficult and operationally impossible to actually use and deal with that in an enterprise environments. Again, thank you all. We posted the YouTube channel URL on the chat window. We will also email you the further details around this channel, these webinars recording, the application I built in this, and thank you all for sparing the time to attend here. We will keep you posted for future updates and webinars as well. Thanks all, and hope to meet you in person in GITEX next week. If you are coming to GITEX, I will be more than happy to meet you in person. Have a great long weekend for whoever have a holiday tomorrow, and happy Hijri year for the Muslims and everyone as well. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.